This evening's reciters are Anil Prabhuji for reading English translation and Rasraj Narsimha Das Prabhuji for reading Sanskrit verses. They'll be reciting from Canto 3, Chapter 24, verses 17 to 32. Firstly, I just want to make sure, is Anil Prabhuji here, please? I'm trying to find out who the iPad belongs to. Okay, in that case, then, are there any volunteers to read the English translation, please?
I can read, Mataji.
I can read.
Yes. Who's that? Yes, Mataji. Was it Yashwini Mataji who said that?
Yeah, sure. But if Jyoti Mataji wants to do it, I'm happy.
Yeah, between the two of you. I don't know when was the last time.
Yashwini Mataji, go ahead. You can read it.
Okay. So, and Prabhuji, please say the invocation 3 times before you start. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, devotees, for giving me the opportunity. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 3, verse 17. Sorry, Canto 3, chapter 24, verse 17. ज्ञानविज्ञानयोगेन कर्मणाम् उत्तरञ्जतः हिरण्यकेश पद्माक्ष पद्ममुद्रा पदाम्बुजः.
Hare Krishna. Let's accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Translation. By mystic yoga and the practical application of knowledge from the scriptures, Kapila Muni, who is characterized by his golden hair, his eyes just like lotus petals, and his lotus feet, which bear the marks of lotus flowers, will uproot the deep-rooted desire for work in this material world.
Verse 18. Eshamanavite garbham pravishta kaita bardhanah avidya samshaya granthim chitva gam vicharishyati.
Lord Brahma then told Devahuti, "My dear daughter of Manu, the same Supreme Personality of Godhead who killed the demon Kastapa is now within your womb. He will cut off all the knots of your ignorance and doubt. Then he will travel all over the world."
Verse 19. Ayam siddha ganadishah shankyacharya shushammatah loke kapila iti akyam ganta te kirti vardhanah.
Your son will be the head of all the perfected souls. He will be approved by the acharyas, expert in disseminating real knowledge, and among the people, he will be celebrated by the name Kapila. As the son of Devahuti, he will increase your fame.
Maitreya uvacha tavasvasya jagatshashta kumaraihi saha naradaha hamso hamsena yanena tridama paramam yayau.
Sri Maitreya said, after thus speaking to Kadama Muni and his wife Devahuti, Lord Brahma, the creator of the universe, who is also known as Hamsa, went back to the highest of the 3 planetary systems on his swan carrier with the 4 Kumaras and Narada.
Verse 21. Kate satadrutau shaktah kardamastena choditah yadotitam svaduhriti pradats vishwasrujam tatah.
O Vidura, after the departure of Brahma, Kadama Muni, having been ordered by Brahma, handed over his 9 daughters, as instructed, to the 9 great sages who created the population of the world.
मरिचे कलां प्रादात् अनसूयाम् अतात्रये श्रद्धाम् अङ्गिरसे अयच्छत् पुलस्त्याय हविर्भुवम् पुलहाय गतिं युक्तं क्रतवेक् च क्रियां सतीं ख्यातिं च भृगवे अयच्छत् वसिष्ठायापि अरुन्धतीम्
Kadima Muni handed over his daughter Kala to Marichi and another daughter Ansuya to Atri. He delivered Shraddha to Angira and Havirbhu to Pulastya. He delivered Gati to Pulaha, the chaste Kriya to Kartu, Khyati to Brigu, and Arundhati to Vashishta.
Verse 24. अतर्वणे अददाच्छान्तिं यया यज्ञो वितन्यते विप्ररषभं बान् कृतोद्वाहान् सुदारान् समलालयत्.
He delivered Shanti to Atharva. Because of Shanti, sacrificial ceremonies are well performed. Thus he got the foremost Brahmanas married, and he maintained them along with their wives.
ततस्तऋषयक्षक्त कृतधारा निमन्त्रयताम् प्रातिष्ठन्नन्दिम् आपन्नाः स्वं स्वम् आश्रममण्डलम्.
Thus married, the sages took leave of Kardama and departed full of joy, each for his own hermitage. O Vidura!
चावतीर्णं त्रियुगम् अज्ञाय विबुधर्षभम् विविक्त उपसङ्गम्य प्रणम्य समभाषत.
When Kadama Muni understood that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the chief of all the demigods, Vishnu, had descended, Kardama approached him in a secluded place, offered obeisances, and spoke as follows.
अहो पापच्यमानानां निरये स्वैरमङ्गलैः कालेन भूयसा नूनं प्रसीदन्तीह देवतः.
Kadama Muni said, "Oh, after a long time, the demigods of this universe have become pleased with the suffering souls who are in material entanglement because of their own misdeeds."
बहुजन्मविपक्वेन सम्यग्योगसमाधिना द्रष्टुं यतन्ते यतयः शून्यागारेषु यत्पदम्.
After many births, mature yogis, by complete trance in yoga, endeavor in secluded places to see the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
स एव भगवानद्य हेलनं न गणय्यनः गृहेषु जातो ग्राम्याणां यक्ष्वानां पक्षपोषणः.
Not considering the negligence of ordinary householders like us, that very same Supreme Personality of Godhead appears in our homes just to support his devotees.
प्रियं वाक्यमृतं कर्तुम् अवतीर्णो असि मे गृहे चिकीर्षुर्भगवान् ज्ञानं भक्तानां मानवर्धनः.
Kadama Muni said, "You, my dear Lord, who are always increasing the honor of your devotees, have descended in my home just to fulfill your word and disseminate the process of real knowledge."
तानि एव ते रूपाणि भगवंस्तव यानि यानि च रोचन्ते स्वजनानामरूपिणः.
My dear Lord, although you have no material form, you have your own innumerable forms. They truly are your transcendental forms, which are pleasing to your devotees.
verse 32. Tvashuribhistattva bhutas sayada. Sorry. Tvam shuribhistattva bubhutsya sada birvadarhana पादपीतम् ऐश्वर्यवैराग्य यशो avabodha वीर्यश्रिया पूर्तमहं प्रपद्ये.
My dear Lord, your lotus feet are the reservoir that always deserves to receive worshipful homage from all great sages, eager to understand the absolute truth. We are full in opulence, renunciation, transcendental fame, knowledge, strength, and beauty, and therefore I surrender myself unto your lotus feet.
Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna, thank you for the opportunity.
Hare Krishna. I guess, do I start? Very
Hare
last time
Krishna
is
Prabhuji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Yes, Prabhuji, you can start now with the Mangalacharan prayer. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
thank you. Hare Krishna. Let's start with prayers. Omagyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadameyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakkamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamascha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadhvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinubandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namustate Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubheva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामी नित्यनामिने नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते कदम्बकानन स्वामी नित्यनामिने नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले Hey, thank you all the devotees for joining us again. And so today we will continue with Canto 3, Chapter 24. That was just nicely recited by Prabhu and Mataji. So thank you so much. So before I start sharing the verses, so just to kind of do a recap of where we've come to in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So Canto 3, we started, this pastime of Canto 3, we started discussing around or about Gardama Muni and Devahuti. So Gardama Muni was a great celestial sage who was performing meditation for thousands of years. And as part of that, his meditation was there in order to support Lord Brahma, his father's service. His father Brahma wanted Gardama Muni to help populate the universe, to help create progeny. And so Gardama Muni was performing his meditation on the Supreme Lord. And part of the reason for that was in order to support that service that Brahma had given to him and be empowered in that way. And so the Supreme Lord came, gave him darshan, and also told Gardama Muni that, look, what you're after, I've already prepared it for you. Very soon, the king of the universe, Swayambhuva Manu, will come with his wife and daughter Devahuti, and they will be interested in having you marry their daughter Devahuti. And as part of that, you will also get an expansion of myself as a son. And so Kardamuni, sorry, Swayambhuva Manu comes to Kardamuni's ashram. They have the discussion. Then Kardamuni agrees to the marriage with Devahuti on one condition. And that condition was that as soon as Devahuti bears semen from Kardamuni, then he will renounce. He will go and focus his life on the true purpose that he had and that all of us have, which is to absorb ourselves in the Supreme Lord. And so that condition gets accepted. Kardamuni and Devahuti get married, and for many years they're living together in the ashram. And at some point, Devahuti desires to have children. And so Kardamuni and Devahuti go around, if it's hundreds or thousands of years again, but yeah, they travel, and in the end they generate progeny. So they have 9 daughters, as was mentioned just earlier today. And when those 9 daughters are born, Kardamuni is like, okay, I've done what I needed to do. Now I'm going to leave. But Devahuti, being shy, being a chaste wife, being a woman who is innocent and kind-hearted, but also desirous of being sheltered, she very faintly speaks to Kardamuni and expresses her desire that, look, like, yes, we've just had children, nine daughters, but what am I going to do without you? How am I going to be protected without my husband? At some point, the daughters will leave. They will get married and leave for their own homes. So who's going to protect me then? And so Kardamuni agrees, okay, fine, I'll stick around. And then they have a son, Kapila, right? So we see that Lord Kapila appears as the son. And after some time, Brahma also comes, and by Brahma's instructions, Kardamuni and Devahuti get their 9 daughters married off to 9 great sages. And so we see that Kardamuni is now preparing for renunciation part 2, or attempt 2, shall we say, where now that the son is born, now that the daughters are married off, now that all the duties are completed, he's thinking, okay, let me now attempt to retire from married life. What's interesting, as we with the verses that we read also, from verses 27 until 40, we see a beautiful discussion or a dialogue between Kardama Muni and Lord Kapila. Because what we realize, or what we see, is that Kardama Muni wasn't whimsically giving up his material duties and material life. He was doing so very systematically. He was doing so having completed his duties. And specifically in these verses, we see that he's doing so by taking permission from the Supreme Lord. And the 2 verses that we have today, verses 33 and 34, I don't know. Okay, yeah, I do have rights to share. So verses 33 and 34, we will see and read about how Kardama Muni glorifies the Supreme, or glorifies Lord Kapila as the Supreme Lord. But then also in the very last verse, he puts forward his request, his desire to actually accept a life of renunciation. And he's seeking permission, which is the interesting part. So would anybody like to read the Sanskrit and then the translation? No? Don't be shy. Okay. Okay.
I can try, Prabhuji.
Yes, Mataji.
Prabhuji,
Please go ahead.
can you scroll the screen as well, please?
Yeah, that's fine.
Paramam pradhanam purusham mahatmanam kalam kavim trivritam lokapalam atmanubhut yang atmanubhut nugata prapanchanam swachanda shaktim kapilam prapadde.
Translation by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. I surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, descended in the form of Kapila, who is independently powerful and transcendental, who is the Supreme Person and the Lord of the sum total of matter and the element of time, who is fully cognizant maintainer of all the universes under the three modes of material nature, and who absorbs the material manifestations after their dissolution. Purport. Purport as well, Prabhuji?
No, I'll go through the purport. Thank you, Mataji. So I'm just going to scroll up a second. So what's interesting as we go through the purport, what we see is that Srila Prabhupada actually starts by elaborating on the first three verses. And what he starts to do is really give an analytical presentation of the verse, which is quite interesting as we go through the verse, because what we see here is that in the previous verses, if we just flick back one here, we see from verse 27, Gardamuni starts to glorify Kapiladev in different ways, right? So he talks about how, he calls him the Supreme Personality Godhead. He's giving different descriptions of my dear Lord, who are always increasing the honor of your devotees, descended in my home just to fulfill your word and disseminate the process of knowledge. We hear about the lotus feet of the Lord. And like this, different descriptions are given. But in verse 33, Prabhupada starts the translation by saying, I surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And as we go through the purport, we'll see that Prabhupada actually very much focuses on describing the Supreme Personality of Godhead through the verses, through the words that are used in the Srimad Bhagavatam by Gardama Muni. So we start off with the six opulences: wealth, strength, fame, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation are indicated here by Gardama Muni, who addresses Kapila Muni, his son, as Param. The word Param is used in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam in the phrase Param Satyam to refer to the Samam Bonam, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the word Bhagavan is often broken down into Bhagavan, and it's a term that's often used that relates to the six opulences of the Lord, which are wealth, strength, fame, beauty, knowledge, renunciation. When we think of the six opulences, then we see that actually everybody in all of creation is trying to develop at least one of these six opulences. We see so many people in the material world are trying to develop or trying to become great or successful through wealth, right? When you look at society, then how are people measured usually? It's by the amount of money they have, by the amount of wealth they have, by how big the house is, about how do they have a Tesla, a Rolls Royce, or a banged up Vauxhall, right? We see that people are respected in society based on how much wealth they have. But who can have more wealth than Krishna? We see that in the Dwarka pastimes, Krishna has 16,108 palaces. And those palaces aren't made of bricks. They're not made of wood. They're not made of concrete. They're made of jewels. They're made of diamonds. They're made of rubies and all these different gems. Who can be more wealthy than Krishna? Strength. You see, so many people in society go to the gym, develop muscles, develop so many things. You see Guinness Book of World Records, where people are pulling airplanes that weigh tons just with their teeth or with their fingers or with their hair or something. But who can be stronger than Krishna? When you see that in the Mahabharata, it's described in the Mahabharata, it's actually described that if Krishna had fought, so I'm sure everybody knows the story whereby prior to the war, when the war was announced, then Arjuna and Duryodhana go to Krishna and basically ask which side is Krishna going to fight. But Krishna's like, I'm not going to fight on any side. I will be the charioteer, or I will be an advisor on one side, and on the other side, I will give my army. You guys decide. And obviously, there's a whole background to that pastime as well. But it's described that actually, if Krishna had fought the war, and he was on one side of the battlefield, and all the other warriors, including the Pandavas, the Kauravas, everybody was on the other side, there would be no challenge. There would be no, the war wouldn't even last 18 days because Krishna would very quickly just annihilate the entire population. And that's one of the reasons why Krishna didn't fight, because the battle would be completely unfair. And so who could be stronger than Krishna? And even in his childhood pastimes, we see the lifting of Govardhan Hill, just with a pinky, not of the normal strong hand, but the pinky of his left hand. He just lifts Govardhan Hill as if it's described as if it was a child picking up a mushroom. So who can be stronger than Krishna? Then we see fame. Fame is an interesting one with Krishna because how many personalities do we recognize who have changed the course of the earth but were 100, 200 years ago, 500 years ago? Not many names would come to mind. But Krishna came 5,000 years ago. And not only is his name known today, not only is he recognized as a personality today, even beyond just the Hindu community, but even in the Western world, where even amongst those who don't know the Krishna consciousness movement or don't know of the Hindu community and the Hindu tradition, if you put a picture of Krishna or put a picture of Krishna and Arjuna on the battlefield, chances are they'll recognize that that's Krishna. Because not only is Krishna known, but he's recognized, he's famous, and his fame is ever increasing as time goes on. Then we look at beauty. Beauty is a really interesting one. I was listening to my Guru Maharaj a couple of days ago, and he was sharing this very beautiful pastime of a Ramanujacharya incident. So Ramanujacharya is one of the great acharyas from a different sampradaya, actually. And he had a disciple who was a great wrestler. Like, he was a very strong personality. His name was Dhanurdas. And what happened is, before he even became a disciple, before Dhanurdas even became a disciple, there was a great Shrirangam celebration that was taking place. And Ramanujacharya was looking around and seeing that, oh, like all the devotees are so absorbed, so immersed in the celebrations, in looking at Krishna and all these things as part of the festival. But as he was looking around, he saw that there was one person who just wasn't absorbed in the festival. And so he was perplexed. He was like, why? So he went up to this person. And then he spoke, like, everybody around you is absorbed in Krishna, in the festival, in the celebrations. What are you doing? And his name wasn't Dhanudas then, but this wrestler, he's basically says like, oh, like, I find nothing more beautiful than the eyes of my wife, right? He was completely captivated by his wife's eyes, or looks in general, her beauty. And so it was like, I can't take my eyes off her. And so Ramanujacharya basically said, okay, right, do you think that your wife is the most beautiful thing in all of creation? And the wrestler's like, yes, of course. There's nobody more beautiful than my wife. So Ramanujacharya basically said, okay, tomorrow you'll come with me. Meet here, same time, same place, and I will take you to someone who is more beautiful than your wife. And so that time comes, the next day the wrestler comes, Ramanujacharya comes, and Ramanujacharya takes this wrestler to Lord Ranganath, right in front, right up close to the deities. And because of Ramanujacharya's potency, he's able to connect with the deities, and the deities actually give darshan to the wrestler. And as the wrestler sees the beauty of Lord Ranganath, he's convinced that there's nothing more beautiful. Not even his wife can attract him anymore. And so they both basically become very great saintly disciples of Ramanujacharya. If somebody is captivated by the beauty of this world and by the beauty of the opposite sex, then Krishna is saying that, look, and even our acharyas say, don't look at Krishna. If you want to be attracted to the material world, don't look at Krishna. Don't look at his smile. Don't look at his face, because the beauty of Krishna is not something that is comparable to anything of this world. So who can be more beautiful than Krishna? And even in the Bhagavad Gita, we see that in chapter 10, Krishna says that of all beautiful things, of all beautiful things of the material world are just a spark of my splendor. So what can be more beautiful than Krishna? Then we look at knowledge. We see that in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna that actually I spoke the same knowledge, the same wisdom many, many thousands of years ago to the sun god. I remember that, but you don't. Who can be more knowledgeable, who can have more memory than Krishna and renunciation? Well, many of us are aware of Krishna leaving Vrindavan. He left that place where he got the topmost love from the gopis, from the damsels of Raja, from the gopas, his friends, from the elderly gopas and gopis in a parental form. But he left all of that. He left it behind to go to another place, to go to Mathura and then to Dwarka. So even though Krishna had all of the love available to him in Vrindavan, he left because he had no attachment, because he was completely renounced. And so just in the first word, we see Param, how Srila Prabhupada is expanding on this idea of what it means to be transcendental, specifically in relation to the Lord. So as we go on, so Param is explained further by the next word, Pradhanam. Pradhana comes up in Canto 2, whereby we talk about the creation of the universe, Pradhan, the unmanifested matter. So from everything, from the Pradhan, from the unmanifested matter, manifest matter comes. And so what we see here is that Krishna is actually described as, or the Supreme Lord is described as, the chief, the origin, the source of everything, Sarvakarana Karanam, because he's the source of that Pradhan, right? Pradhanam, source of the Pradhan. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is not formless, he is Purusham. So it's interesting, he's Purusham, or the enjoyer, the original person. So it's interesting because whilst describing these characteristics of the Supreme Lord as Param, as Pradhanam, one can develop a very impersonal understanding of God. And Gautama Muni immediately calls out that no, this is not an energy. This is not a thing in the mind. This is not a made up thing, nor is this just a impersonal energy. The Supreme Lord is a Purusham, is a person, is an enjoyer, is a tangible person that you can have a relationship with. Of course, many of us will know from Bhagavad Gita and other sections of Bhagavatam that there's 3 levels of understanding the Supreme. There's the Brahman, which is the energy. Then you've got the Paramatma, which is the super soul. And then you've got Bhagavan, which is the personal aspect of the Lord, which is the most complete of all 3 levels of understanding. Oftentimes when we talk about these levels of understanding the Lord, we say that they're not incorrect. None of the 3 are incorrect. They're just different degrees of completeness. And sometimes we use the analogy of a train where, in a story form, we talk about how there's three kids who have never seen a train before. And they hear about, oh, there's a train. And so they go to the mom, but what is a train? What does it look like? What do we do with the train? And so the mother takes the 3 children, like, okay, come with me. She takes the 3 kids to a train station and they're waiting for the train. And so the mom is saying, the train will come. Just listen out for it. So as the train is coming from the distance, what happens first is as it's coming around the corner, the very first thing that the children take note of is that there is a sound, choo-choo, and then there's smoke coming out of the engine, the steam, right? It's a steam engine. And so the kids are like, oh my gosh, that's a train, that's a train. And the first kid is thinking, that's a train, it's smoke and it's sound. And so it runs back to its mum and says, Mum, I know what the train is. It's smoke and it's sound. Is that incorrect? No. Is it complete? No. So the other two children are still waiting at the train station. They're waiting, okay, maybe there's more. Maybe there's more to come. So as the train now comes around the corner in visible proximity, then both of the children start seeing, oh, the train has headlights. It's light. It's got some light, and it's a big box, right? It's like a massive box. So then the second kid goes to mummy and goes, Mummy, I know what a train is. It's smoke, it's sound, it's got light, and it's a big box. Is that incorrect? No. Is it complete? Also no. And so the third kid who's still at the train station, he's waiting. He sees that the train comes, stops at the train station. He sees that people are coming out of the train, going into the train. He himself goes into the train. He sees that there's seating there. He sees that there's places to rest. He sees that there's desks or like small tables. He comes out and he goes to his mum, I know what a train is. On one level, it looks like it's smoke. It looks like it's sound. On a second level, it looks like it's light. It looks like it's a box. But on the deepest level, it's all of those, plus it's a people carrier. It's a carrier to allow people to go from one place to another, from one station to another. Is that correct? Yes. Is it complete? Now, yes. And so in the same way, when we talk about Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan, we often use that analogy where Brahman is very much like the smoke and the sound, right? Or in terms of Krishna, it's the effulgence of the Lord. Then when we talk about Paramatma, we see that there's a form with the train. So we can see that it's a box, there's light there. So there's some characteristics. And so Paramatma is seen as the localized version of the Lord. But then Bhagavan is seen as the personal aspect of the Lord because there's actual relationship. There's actually other things that are going on deep within, just as with a train. It's not just a box, it's actually a carriage where people can interact and do things. So oftentimes we describe the three levels like that. He's the time element and is all cognizant. He knows everything, past, present, and future, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. The Lord says, I know everything, present, past, and future, in every corner of the universe. The material world, which is moving under the spell of the three modes of nature, is also a manifestation of his energy. And this will be interesting. Parasya Shaktir Vividheva Shruyate. Everything that we see is an interaction of his energies. Shvetashvara Upanishad 6.8. Parasya Brahmana Shaktistatedam Akhilam Jagat. This is the version of the Vishnu Puran. We can understand that whatever we see is an interaction of the three modes of material nature. But actually, it is all an interaction of the Lord's energy. This is really interesting because we see that actually almost 2 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita are dedicated to the three modes of material nature, right? So we have chapter 14 and all of chapter 14, predominantly a lot of chapter 17 and even some of chapter 18 actually are dedicated to talking about the three modes of material nature. What are they? Well, I'm sure most of us know. They are ignorance, passion, and goodness. The three modes of material nature are described oftentimes as consciousness or characteristics or nature associated to everything and everyone around us and within us. So we see that in chapter 17, it's described that the food can be in different modes. It's described that the act of charity, the act of penance, the act of austerity, all of these things can be, even faith can be in different modes. Even one's worship or devotional service can be in different modes, as we'll find out in Canto 4. So all these things, everything is associated or interacts with or under the influence of these three modes. And so what we take away is that actually all of these three modes are just energies of the Lord, but they're external energies. They're manifestations of the Lord's external energies that are interacting. And so as devotees, what we're trying to do is actually transcend, go beyond the three modes of material nature, because we don't want to be entangled in the three modes. We don't want to be entangled with material energy. Rather, we want to be associated to Krishna's personal energy, the spiritual energy. So how do we do that? Well, it's described that the best and most sublime way to transcend the three modes is to use the modes to transcend, is to understand how to leverage the modes in such a way that we can actually connect to Krishna, which is in the mode of pure goodness. And so oftentimes we say that situating ourselves in the mode of goodness, which is the best of the three modes, or the most purest of the three modes, albeit it's not entirely pure because it's still conditioned, it's still part of the material energy. But we talk about how devotional service is best practiced when we're situated in mode of goodness, because from there we can use it as a springboard to connect with Krishna in the mode of pure goodness. But if we think of the modes, ignorance is there, passion is there. All of us are conditioned in different ways, or everything around us is affected by the three modes in different ways and different degrees. When we're sleeping, arguably we are in the mode of ignorance, because one of the symptoms or one of the qualities of the mode of ignorance is lethargy, right? Or being sleepy as well. But as devotees, we recognize that actually Krishna also says that one who sleeps too much or one who sleeps too little cannot be a sage of steady mind. And so it's important for us, even as devotees, that we recognize how much sleep we need, how much recreation we need, how much of different things we need in our life to situate ourselves to serve Krishna nicely. The goal of life, the goal of spirituality is not to be in the mode of goodness, but it's to use the modes to connect with Krishna in the mode of loving God. But the best way to practice that is indeed rising up to the mode of goodness, but then also recognizing that areas of our life will be in the mode of ignorance and passion, but properly utilizing those in order to support our service to Krishna. Lokapalam, he's actually the maintainer of all living entities. Nityanam. He's the chief of all living entities. He is one, but he maintains many living entities. God maintains all other living entities, but no one can maintain God. This is his Swachanda Shakti. He's not dependent on others. Someone may call himself independent, but he's still dependent on someone higher. The personality of Godhead, however, is absolute. There is no one higher than or equal to him. This is interesting for me, just reflecting on it, because when I was reading this, I was thinking, the Lord is not dependent on anyone. Everything is maintained. Even we are maintained. Even our actions are maintained. Even our karma is maintained by the Supreme Lord. And yet the Lord is so merciful that just to help us connect with him, just because we need him, the Lord manifests himself in the form of a deity so that we can look after him. And that's a beautiful connection of love from the Lord to us, because the Lord has no need to manifest as a deity. Let's be honest, right? The Lord comes because he wants to, right? We understand from Bhagavad Gita that the Lord comes for the pleasure of the devotees, to annihilate the miscreants and to reestablish Dharma. But when we go through the commentaries of the Acharyas, we understand that actually the Lord has no reason to do any of these things. Just by a click of his fingers, just by his glance, he manifests the material creation and he populates the universe. Do you think he needs to come down in order to annihilate miscreants? Do you think he needs to come down to give bliss and joy to his devotees? No. Does he need to come down to establish dharma? Absolutely not. He comes down purely for his own pleasure. And so the Lord, even in the deity form, comes for his own pleasure, but he does so out of mercy so that we have an opportunity to serve him. Because, at least I speak for myself, if I didn't have a tangible way to connect with Krishna through a deity form or something like that, a rascal like me wouldn't even think about worshipping the Lord, wouldn't even think about connecting with Krishna. I'd just be so absorbed in the tangible things around me, trying to find enjoyment for my senses. But the Lord comes in his deity form just to help us connect with him. And so much we can do with the deities, right? If we want to connect in a parental way, we can dress the Lord, uh, we can feed the Lord, we can anoint the Lord in so many different ways, out of service or out of like parental sort of affection. If we want awe and reverence, we can bow down, we worship, we offer great gifts, decorate the Lord, or offer jewelry and crowns and all these things to the Lord. If we want to connect out of friendship, we can connect with the Lord through offering prayers, through offering our words and sharing our life with the Lord, with the deities, sharing what's going on. If we want to connect conjugally, then we can endeavor to always be connecting with the deities, to always be connecting with the Lord in different ways. So much we can do by the mercy of the deity. And yes, Kali Yuga, the Yuga Dharma is chanting the holy names, but how much taste do we actually have to chant the names constantly? At least speaking for myself, I don't. I can go for kirtan for an hour, 2 hours maybe, I don't know. But chanting, the real taste, right? So oftentimes in kirtan we can be like, oh yes, I've achieved a very elevated platform. I have attained love of Godhead. I'm crying, tears are running down from my eyes, just wishing I was with the Lord in this moment. At that moment, turn to your bead bag, start chanting in isolation in a solitary mode. See how long that mood and that desire lasts. Because one who has taste for the holy names, whether it's kirtan, sankirtan, whether it's japa or any other form, it doesn't make a difference. They're not connected to how good the music sounds. They're connected with how much taste, how much joy, how much bliss there is in the names alone. Anyway, conscious of time, I can keep going. Kapila Muni appeared as a son of Gardama Muni, but because Kapila is an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Gardama Muni offered respectful obeisances unto him with full surrender. Gardama Muni is the father of Kapila Muni, and yet Gardama Muni is offering such elaborate prayers, such elaborate offerings to Kapila Muni. And also, as I've got highlighted here, offers his respectful obeisances unto him with full surrender. Some will say this is like a rasa bhas, right? This is like a destruction of the mellow of the relationship between father and son. On the material level, that may be true, if you look at this pastime in a material way. But when you look at it from a spiritual perspective, we see that this is a devotee, Gardama Muni, whose relationship with the Lord is that of a neutral or service-oriented mood. And so what he's doing is that even though the Lord has come as his son, the Lord himself has introduced rasa bhas in the external sense of the relationship. But Gardama Muni is very, very cognizant of the fact that no. My relationship with the Lord is not that of a father. My relationship with the Lord is that of a servant. And so Gardama Muni especially endeavors to make sure his own reverence towards Kapila Muni is recognized, is known, and is expressed through the words of glorification that we've seen in the verses up until now in this one, and also in offerings, obeisances, and surrender. And we see this as a huge contrast to Nanda Maharaj in Vrindavan, where Nanda Maharaj was very similar, the father of Krishna. But because Nanda Maharaj's relationship with Krishna was of a Vatsalya nature, both materially and spiritually, that rasabhas did not exist. That destruction of the mellow of the relationship didn't exist because the spiritual position of Nanda Maharaj was to be the father of Krishna. And so we see that Nanda Maharaj will chastise Krishna, he will embrace Krishna, he will smell Krishna's hair, and all these different things, give affection, give love, so many things. Another word in this verse is very important. Atmanu bhutya nugata prapancham. The Lord descends either as Kapila or Rama, Nrsimha or Varaha, and whatever form he assumes in the material world are all manifestations of his own personal internal energy. They're never forms of the material energy. The ordinary living entities who are manifested in this material world have bodies created by the material energy. But when Krishna or any one of his expansions or parts of the expansions descends to this material world, although he appears to have a material body, his body is not material. He always has a transcendental body. Satchit Ananda Vigraha. We understand that the Supreme Lord has a eternal, full of knowledge and blissful spiritual body. But fools and rascals who are called mudas consider him as one of them, and therefore they deride him. They refuse to accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead because they cannot understand him. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Avajanati ma mudha. Those who are rascals and fools deride me. When God descends in a form, this does not mean that he assumes his form with the help of the material energy. He manifests his spiritual form as he exists in his spiritual kingdom. If we just go back to the Mahabharata pastime, we see that before the war takes place, Krishna goes as a peace messenger to the Kauravas, to Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana. And when he's speaking, and this is where the famous statement is spoken by Duryodhana that he's not even willing to give a piece of land the size of the tip of a needle to the Pandavas. Then Krishna, in his last ditch attempt at stopping war from happening, at saving the massacre of mass population, Krishna reveals his supreme form, his universal form, not the same one that Arjuna sees, but a different form to Duryodhana, and I believe Dhritarashtra also. But they just don't accept it. Duryodhana is like, who is this guy? Like, arrest him, right? Lock him up. And the Supreme Lord is trying to show his form that, look, like, everything's running by my desire, by my will. What are you doing? Like, listen, like it's for your own good. Listen to me. But Duryodhana, out of his, as Srila Prabhupada calls out here, out of his foolishness and rascaldom, he can't see, he can't accept, he can't understand that Krishna is the Supreme Lord standing right in front of him, coming as a peace messenger for the Pandavas. Similarly, in Mathura, when Krishna leaves Vrindavan, goes to Mathura, and he's entering the battle arena with the wrestlers. What their names now? Anyway, yeah, the wrestlers just before they kill Kamsa, basically. Then we see in the description of the Srimad Bhagavatam in Canto 10, in this section, probably around chapters 45, between 45 and 50, I think. We see a description of how everybody in the audience, or not even just the audience, everybody in the arena is seeing Krishna and Balaram in different ways, according to their relationship, according to their mellow with Krishna. We see, I think it's described that the women see them as like Cupid, different things, and with, I think it's the wrestlers, he's seen as thunder, and with Kamsa he's seen as death personified. The Lord, the Supreme Lord, comes in his form as Krishna to the battle arena of Mathura. Everybody is seeing different beautiful things about Krishna and Balaram based on their form, based on their love. And yet, Kamsa is seeing him as death personified. Because he has no vision. He has no vision to see that this is the Supreme Lord, the most lovable object, but not even object, the lovable person. Because, as Prabhupada says here, they refuse to accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead because they cannot understand him. we as devotees, we have a great fortune that somehow or another we've been connected to this merciful parampara by Srila Prabhupada's grace, that even if not practically, even if not heartily, but at least philosophically, we can see and read and hear about Krishna being the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the most lovable person, that special friend who's always situated in the heart next to us. And our practice is a process to develop that love, to nurture that love by recognizing him, by seeing him, and seeing his hand behind everything that's happening in our life. And using all of that to not just get to know Krishna better, but to actually love Krishna. And the final thing on this verse that I'll just mention very briefly, he manifests his spiritual form as he exists in his spiritual kingdom. It's really interesting because in this whole paragraph, Srila Prabhupada is really emphasizing this point that the Lord doesn't come down in a material form. He doesn't connect with the material energy like you and me, because he comes in a transcendental form. He comes in a form that directly descends from the spiritual kingdom. And what we hear and see through the scriptures and through the acharyas is that the Lord doesn't just come on his own. He comes with his entourage from the spiritual world, like the devotees, like the Pandavas and so on. But he also brings down his spiritual kingdom. Vrindavan in India is non-different to the Vrindavan in the spiritual world, because when Krishna comes, he brings Vrindavan down. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came, he brought Sridham Mayapur down, or Navadvip Dham down. And so these places are called pilgrim places or holy places, especially potent in terms of Vrindavan, Mayapur, Jagannath Puri, and so on, because the Lord has manifested them, has brought them down from the spiritual world himself. Okay, so go through verse 34 very quickly. Asva swambhi pritchedya patim prajanam tvaya vatirnarna utapta kama parivrajat padavim astitoham charishyatvam hredi yunjan vishoka. Translation. Today I have something to ask from you, who are the Lord of all living entities. Since I have now been liberated by you from my debts to my father, and since all my desires are fulfilled, I wish to accept the order of an itinerant mendicant. Renouncing this family life, I wish to wander about, free from lamentation, thinking always of you in my heart. We see here in the very last verse spoken by Garda Muni, because in verse 35, Kapila Muni starts speaking. We see that Garda Muni has put forward his request. He said, I want to renounce from family life. I want to start wandering about, like going around. So he wants to not get rid of, but get away from family life. He wants to start just living a free life, living a life in the mode of goodness. And then, in a not mode of goodness, in a mode of pure goodness, in the sense of he's not attached to anything, he's not associated to anything. Free from lamentation, which is connected, i.e. this idea of being in spiritual enlightenment. And then especially thinking always of you in my heart. So just this sentence alone, if we think about the three modes of nature, it's really beautiful, because it's talking about, okay, I want to be in the mode of goodness because being detached from family life is mode of goodness. I wish to wander about free from lamentation, which is mode of pure goodness because it's actually spiritual minded. But what makes this special is thinking always of you in my heart. He's really taking his meditation to say, I don't want to just be spiritual. I don't just want to be on the spiritual platform. I want to be on the platform of love of Godhead. So purport. Actually, sannyas, renunciation of material household life, necessitates complete absorption in Krishna consciousness and immersion in the self. So here, most of us will know or be aware of the 4 ashramas. So you've got your brahmacharya, which is your student life. Then you've got your grihastha, which is your family life. Then you've got the vanaprastha, which is the stage of renouncing family life. And then you've got sannyas, which is the stage of pure renunciation. And Prabhupada's calling out that actually, when one takes the stage of sannyas, it's not one to be taken whimsically, because the fundamental requirement is to be completely absorbed in Krishna and immersion in the self. So we see that Gardama Muni, actually, let me read on and then we find out. One does not take sannyas, freedom from family responsibility in the one does not take sannyas, freedom from family responsibility in the renounced order of life, to make another family or to create an embarrassing transcendental fraud in the name of sannyas. Sannyas is a very special ashram in which there is no association with the material energy at all, none allowed even. And what we see should Prabhupada really calling out here is that one shouldn't whimsically try to detach from family life. Sometimes even us devotees, we might think, oh my gosh, family life is such a struggle, so many duties. If you're married, you've got a spouse to manage and all the arguments that come with it. If you've got kids, you've got to, you've got to discipline them. They don't listen half the time, and so on and so forth. You've got potentially a job which isn't to your satisfaction. You've got a social scene that you have to attend to, whether it's family, friends, or even devotee circles. You've got all these things to manage, and it's like, I just want to be free of it all, right? I just want to get rid of all of these anxieties. If only I could be renounced and give it all up. Sometimes a thought may come, but is that thought coming from a cultivation of renunciation, or is that coming from if I just flip this around, is that coming from a desire to be free and relieved from family responsibilities immaturely, right? So the sannyasa ashram is not one to be taken lightly. It's one where we are actually cultivating and have achieved a level of perfection, in quotes, of renunciation. And so that's why the 4 stages are there, where brahmacharya is there. So you're in student life, you're focused on the studying material and spiritual sciences, and then you enter grihastha. You may choose not to, that's fine, but then you enter grihastha. So now you're married. Now you're regulating your sense enjoyment, but engaging in it. And then you've got vanaprastha, which is then starting to renounce from it. So you've got regulation in grihastha, but then you've started to cultivate a restraint in vanaprastha. And once that restraint becomes a part of you, then you can enter into sannyas, because that restraint is no longer something you're fighting. It's not that you're having to endeavor to restrain yourself from the material household life, but rather you've cultivated a level of detachment through your endeavors, through your spiritual practices, that you no longer desire to be engaged and absorbed or even interact with the material energy in the same way. The sannyasi's business is not to become proprietor of so many things and amass money from the innocent public. A sannyasi is proud that he is always thinking of Krishna within himself. So that's another measure that we can take. How ready are we for a life of renunciation? Well, are we thinking of Krishna 24/7? Is whatever that is coming into our life distracting us from Krishna, or are we able to use it to connect with Krishna? Of course, there are 2 kinds of devotees of the Lord. One is called Goshtyanandi, which means those who are preachers and have many followers for preaching the glories of the Lord, and who live among those many followers just to organize missionary activities. Other devotees are Atmanandi, or self-satisfied, and do not take the risk of preaching work. They therefore remain alone with God. We see that in ISKCON, being a Goshtyanandi is much more prominent and much more encouraged than being an Atmanandi. We see in our lineage how, well, in the Bhagavad Gita, we see in chapter 18 that Krishna says that one who preaches about this knowledge, this spiritual wisdom, is most dear to me. So when we take that as the basis, we see that 500 years ago when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came, he didn't practice a spiritual life of Atmanandi, of just being self-satisfied. But Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu who is the Supreme Lord and who developed the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, or Gaudiya Vaishnavism and down, we see that he very much focused on preaching. We see that he went to South India to preach. He went to different states. He went, on a whole tour of India just to preach and glorify the Lord and encourage and empower various members of the public to chant Krishna's names. And so, taking that spirit, we see Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He was a preacher. Srila Prabhupada, he was a preacher. We see that Srila Prabhupada's disciples, many of them, they're preachers because their focus of the sampradaya that we come from, the focus of the lineage we have, is to preach. And that's why we see that Yada Dikhe Taha Kaha Krishna Upadesh. We see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that wherever you go, whoever you meet, just speak about Krishna, glorify Krishna, remind them of Krishna, tell them everything you can about Krishna. And sometimes we may think that, oh, I don't know much about Krishna. I don't know how to speak on the Srimad Bhagavatam. I don't know how to speak on the Bhagavad Gita. How can I preach? Then Srila Prabhupada very mercifully gives us something very, very simple, because his disciples questioned the same thing. Srila Prabhupada, we don't know much about Krishna as much as you do. How can we preach? How can we tell people about Krishna? And so Srila Prabhupada calls upon a very small young girl called Saraswati. And he says that, he calls out Saraswati and says, look at how she's preaching. What does she know of Krishna? Whatever she knows, she is preaching. She goes, Saraswati's technique, right? A small girl, can't remember how old, maybe somebody on the call knows, but very small, maybe 5 years old or 7 years old, something. On the streets, she would pull on somebody, right, on the street, like pull their jacket or something and go, sir, do you know who Krishna is? No, who is Krishna? Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that's her preaching. So whatever little we know, we can preach. But the idea is that we preach. The idea is that we share about Krishna, we speak about Krishna, because it does two things. Well, three things. One is that it reminds us of Krishna, right? Because have you noticed, like, when you talk about Krishna intentionally, then you're reminded of Krishna yourself. You remind yourself, oh yeah, I'm a devotee. Oh yeah, I haven't chanted my rounds yet. Oh yeah, I haven't read from the Bhagavatam today yet. Oh yeah, there's a class coming up, right? We remind ourselves of Krishna. The second thing that happens is that our senses become purified, our desires become purified, our consciousness becomes purified just by connecting with the Lord in that way. And the third thing that happens is that the super soul in the heart of the other person becomes pleased. And so, I think I had this from Gesha Maharaj, maybe somebody else, but somebody had told Gesha Maharaj once, a senior devotee, that actually the odds are against the other person when you speak about Krishna, because you want them to connect with Krishna, the super soul in your heart wants them to connect with Krishna, the super soul in their heart wants to connect them to Krishna. It's only that soul that doesn't want to connect to Krishna. So it's 3 against 1, the odds are in your favor that the other person gets connected to Krishna. So wherever we go, we want to talk about Krishna because it helps us, it purifies us, and it pleases a super soul in the other person's heart such that they may, by chance, get connected to Krishna, provided Krishna's mercy is there. And so that's why we very much focus in ISKCON on being a Goshtanandi or preaching work as our main way of connecting with Krishna. Yes, Atmanandi is there to the degree of our personal bhajan or personal sadhana, but a lot of prominence is given on being engaged in the missionary activities also. And we see in this classification was Gardama Muni. He wanted to be free from all anxieties and remain alone within his heart with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Gardama Muni was actually an Atmanandi. Parivraja means an itinerant mendicant. A mendicant sannyasi should not live anywhere for more than 3 days. He must be always moving because his duty is to move from door to door and enlighten people about Krishna consciousness. That is what a sannyasi does. That is why you see that a sannyasi, even in ISKCON, for the most part, will not remain in the same place for too long. So I will stop there. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Bhagavad Gita Jai. Any questions, comments, corrections, reflections?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, just wanted to say it's a very nice class. Thank you so much for your explanations. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Anyone else? No, in that case, I guess we can close. That's okay with everyone? Okay. Panchakalpatarubhischa kripasindhubhyev cha patitam pavanabhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Anantakoti Vaishnavrinda ki jai. Shwapad ki jai. Bhagavatam ki jai. Thank you, everyone. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you, Prabhuji, for the
the
wonderful
nice class.
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna
Prabhuji.
Prabhuji, thank
Everyone.
you.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Hare Krishna Prabhu, wonderful class. You explained it so beautifully about preaching, because when we speak of preaching, we think of just, sitting on a sannyas, as a on the sanghas and talking to a group of people. But there's so many ways one can do preaching. It's so beautiful. Thank you. You pointed it out beautifully. Can you hear me? Nobody can hear.
I think Prabhuji has left. Hare Krishna.
All right, Haribo. I thought he was there. Sorry. Oh no, my system was playing up. I could hear and sometimes I can't hear.
These things happen. Hare Krishna.
Haribo.